All right, everyone, welcome to our Teaching Tuesday in the new year, 2022. We've been doing Teaching Tuesdays since 2019 we started, and we were doing them just once a month. Then they became so popular, we decided to do them the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. And then they got really popular. So in 2020, we started doing them every single Tuesday. And now throughout 2021, we did them every Tuesday. And now we're in 2022. And we're still bringing our members forward to put them in the spotlight every Tuesday for them to teach on their genius. So we have different subjects all the time. There may be a subject on fitness or health. There may be a subject on financials or chakras, which was last week. So this week we have Heather Abbott, who's with us, and she's going to be speaking to us all about financial clarity for prosperity. Good morning, Missy. Good morning, Trisha. We're going to be talking about the importance of knowing your numbers on tips on how to do it easily. So I can't imagine why we don't have 50 people on this call, because financial prosperity should be on the top of the list for everybody moving into 2022, right? For me, this year feels bigger, better, bolder. How can we really step into realizing and doing the things that we want to do, not the things we've been tolerating, but the things that we really want to be doing this year, and how to identify what that is and focus all of our time and energy on that. And we all know financials at the top of the list, because money allows us to be more of ourselves. It allows us the freedom to be able to help others more and be able to do more. So financial prosperity is at the top of the list for me, Heather, and Trisha as well. Thumbs up. She's got a thumbs up for that. So Heather, I'm going to go ahead and let you get started, kind of share a little bit about yourself and how you want to roll with today's workshop.
Okay. Thanks, Colleen.
You're welcome.
I'm going to start off with a little story about me, and then we're going to go into some teaching points, and I like it to be interactive. So if you have any questions that you want answered, please ask me. Just you can put up your hand and I'll answer you. So for anyone who doesn't know me, I started learning accounting in 1984. I became, it's been a while. I do not look as old as I'm supposed to. It's because I never grow up. I became an accountant, not because I had any yearning to. It was because I had done accounting in high school for 2 years, and I had to pick something, and it was really easy. So it's like, yeah, sure, I'll be an accountant. So that's why I'm an accountant. Yes, it is very easy for me. I became a financial advisor when I was married, not because, again, I thought it was fascinating to be a financial advisor. It was actually, I was married to a nasty narcissist, and I wanted to travel, but not with him, but I couldn't get anywhere without him. And I knew Investors Group flew you places for training. And of course, that would have to be alone. So I was like, yeah, sign me up. Didn't care what the job entailed. Did not know, did not care. I had to do 2 courses. Usually people spent like 6 weeks on each course. I did both of them in 2 weeks and got 80s on the exams. Most people get like 60s. So again, numbers come really easily for me. This stuff, I've done it for so long, but I am still able to remember that not everybody speaks as in, oh, we're going to do depreciation on your assets. And like that sentence in itself can lose a lot of people. I know that, and I'm still able to bring it back to the level where it needs to be. I am actually doing more than finances. What I do is I mix magic with money. I have a personality that very much resonates with, let's say, magical fairies. And I bring that whole side and all the mindset and all that side that I have also spent many years learning, and mix that with the practical numbers. But you need to have the mindset as well as the numbers. So when I look at someone's things, where I'm going in business is you think of it as a triangle. You have to have, for a fulfilled life, that's what I'm helping people get, is a fulfilled life. So to have that, you have to have freedom, you have to have joy, and you have to have wealth. And if you're lacking in any of those, you're not going to be able to get to the fulfilled life. But even if you have all three, you have the wealth, you have the freedom, you have the joy, you still need clarity. I didn't have that. In 2015, I finally got free of the man I was married to. I finally left him. I had denied for 25 years that I had been mentally abused. And I left him. It was a very hard week because you don't get a lot of understanding or time off work just because you left an abusive relationship, especially if you don't admit that it was abusive. But at the end of the week, he shot himself in front of me. And as I was running away, I turned to look back to see if he faked it. There's a good clue about the level of mental abuse, because that was on par with something he would do. He hadn't. It looked like a bruise, but it was nothing bad or gory, but it was significant in my life because that did get me put off work. I did have money. So I had the wealth. I had the freedom. He was gone. Nobody was telling me what I could or couldn't do anymore. And I had joy. So I had all three sides of that triangle, but I was still missing the clarity. I knew my passion was to speak and teach. And people say, what are you going to teach? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I'll learn yoga. Like, you would think after 25 years of being an accountant and working with numbers and being able to just spit out facts to people, that it would have automatically gone there. But no, it's taken me a few years and working through a lot of things. So you always end up teaching what you've learned. You can't teach what you don't know. And I have spent a lot of time working on getting the clarity and getting focused. And I know that it's like being in a labyrinth. If you can't see it from that above view, you don't know where all the dead ends are. So if it makes your path, rather than it being a long curvy path, it's a long curvy path with a lot of side roads that go nowhere. So my goal is to help people make sure they have the joy, the wealth, the freedom, and the clarity. Help them define their path to get them from where they are, find out where they want to be, and then help them build their own path to it and keep them on it. Just try and cut down on all those side roads, all the squirrels that are so tempting. So that's what I'm doing. Today, we're going to focus mainly on the financial part because it's the beginning of the year. And I know that everybody wants to get that off on the right foot financially. I do want to touch on all the different things today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link in the chat. Colleen, maybe you could share this one for me. This link is actually for an event that I had in a giveaway recently. It's a training that I'm doing where I'm going to go in depth, farther in depth than we'll be able to do here. It's a 2-hour class. And that is, the date and time is not set. It will be next week, but when you sign up, you have to put in your time zone because I'm trying to optimize it for the most number of people to come. And in that class, we're going to dive deep into the things that I'm going to cover today. And that will give you absolute clarity with your numbers. You will know exactly where your money is going, what you can and cannot afford. I highly recommend you coming. I've always had really good reviews when I've done it. So, numbers. A lot of people don't like them. I have had people tell me, oh no, I don't want to look. I can't look at my finances. I don't want to look. Some people are afraid it's going to pinch off the flow of what's coming into them. I have had one client who, she was a millionaire. She is a millionaire. She's able to just bring money in hand over fist, like just it flows in. If she sees she's getting low, she just does another sale and in it comes. But she put up her hand and said, no, I'm totally irresponsible. She was paying penalties, really high penalties, like tens of thousands of dollars, because she wasn't filing things on time. And it was mainly because she didn't want to look at where it was going, because she thought if she got too much into that, it would cut off her flow. But I pointed out to her, if you're afraid to look, you've already got a rock in that stream. So let's look at the rock so that we can get it out of the stream. And she's like, I never thought of it that way. And she did the course with me. She got clarity on the numbers, and she dove right into it. She was no longer afraid of them. And that's the beauty of having a method, a system that makes it so that your numbers can be your friend. As business owners, and I'm assuming a lot of us here are business owners, you do not have to do your own bookkeeping. You don't have to do your own numbers, but you do need to know them. That means you cannot just go out, hire a bookkeeper and accountant and say, here's all the receipts. What do I owe? That's not what you need them for. You need, yes, you do have to file. You do have to know what you owe, but you also have to know why. What are the numbers? Are you profitable? There's a lot of people, you'll hear people say, oh, I had a 6-figure day. Oh, they had 6 figures in sales, so they made $100,000. No, Colleen, you're with me on this. Just because you sold $100,000 does not mean you pocketed $100,000. There's fees, there's all kinds of things that you paid out, and you tend to forget some of them unless you were looking at your books. So, I'm so glad that some of you actually love your numbers. When you have your accountant or your bookkeeper doing your books, you need to at least look every month at the statements so that you can see, are you profitable? What are expenses that are recurring expenses that you may have forgotten about that are cutting into those profits? I have actually seen businesses that are paying people to take their services or take their goods off of their hands because they're not covering their costs. Everything they sell is at a loss. That's not where you want to be, right? So once you look at them, what are some of the things that you need to know? So for a business, there's what we call overhead costs. Overhead costs are the costs that you are not directly related to what you're selling. So for a brick and mortar business, that would be things like rent, machinery, things like that. For people like us in an online space, that would be if you have paid for a lot of courses. It would be if you're paying for your CRM, your Zoom, your calendar, your all these different subscriptions that you have. You're a member of this, you're a member of that. Those are overhead costs. Joining Lead Up for Women is an overhead cost. It's something that you've paid for, but then you may forget about when you're actually looking at whether you're profitable or not. And some people pay for things that are $10, $20, $25, $30,000, and they're not figuring those costs into what their pricing is for things. You have to cover all these things. So that's where people in business, what's one of the major places where they go wrong. Now, I really want to focus a little bit more on the personal side of things. Does anybody here have any questions about what I've said so far? No, I'm guessing not. It was pretty straightforward. So when you're dealing with your personal finances, what I promised you is an easy way to start. This is a high view of the system that I'm going to be teaching that you're invited to come to for free. This is not usually a free course. I have sold it before for $300. It should be actually priced higher than that. I know it's only 2 hours, but it is still, there is a lot of value in it. When you sign up, you will also get, not when you sign up, but when I set the time and date, you'll get an email from me and it will have PDFs in there that are going to be, you'll be able to print them off, fill them in, and it's going to help you with this. So the system I use, I do not like budgets. I don't even like the word budget. I love freedom. I like freedom of choice, and budget just feels constrictive. It feels small. It feels like you don't have money. What I use is a system that is based on obligations, food and fun, paying you. Those are the three categories, and income. So you have 3 sections for your expenses and 1 for your income. It sounds small, but your income actually has a whole sheet. What I do is I give you a detailed list so that you don't forget things. Everybody has had the opportunity where it could be when you met with a financial advisor, it could be any time, but at some point in your life, I'm sure you've come up against a thing that says, how much do you spend for clothing? How much do you spend for living expenses? And how much do you spend? And there's like 5 things. And you're supposed to be able to estimate or guess everything in there. The more detailed it is, the more likely you are to have quality numbers and have accurate information. Garbage in, garbage out. If your numbers you put in are worthless, the feedback you get from filling that in is also worthless. That's why mine have a lot more detail to them. When I look at obligations, obligations are the things that you are not tempted to spend more on. There are things that you have decided that this is where you want your money to go. You can usually quantify them very easily without guesswork. If you own a vehicle, gas is in there. Gas, yes, has a bit of flexibility to it, but it's something you can reasonably estimate. It's not something that you're going to be like, oh, I think I want to buy more gas today. Your vehicle, your housing costs. Housing costs would be things like your mortgage, but also things like your television subscriptions. Totally discretionary, whether or not how many subscriptions you have for TV services or internet. You can decide whether you want to have it or not have it. But once you've decided and committed to it, it's an obligation. It's something that you can quantify and that you're not, again, going to be tempted to spend more on, like as if you went into a grocery store and without a list and you were hungry and you came out with like $200 worth of food and most of it's snack food. That's why food is not under obligations. Food is totally in with food and fun because it's totally discretionary. Discretionary meaning you get to choose. The obligations, there's medical, transportation, housing, some of the children's expenses, and other financial obligations. So like loans or credit cards or things like that, maybe savings, those are in there as well. So if you're contributing to, in the US, a 401k, in Canada, an RSP, any of those, all of that would fit under obligations. So the key here is once you've calculated accurately all your obligations, the next section you would really want to look at is your income. And again, I have all kinds of reminders because people forget some of the income they have. Some people are getting alimony or child support. Some people have pensions or other government support. There can be self-employment income. There can be jobs. So there's a lot of different income. What you need to get to for your income section is your net income. And that means what you have left after the government is paid. So if you're self-employed, that would be the income that you're going to report that you have minus what you had to pay the government at the end of the year. If you get a refund, you can add that back into the income, but you want that as accurate as possible to net income. You take your obligations and you convert everything to weekly. And I also give you a schedule on how to convert it properly to weekly, because some people are like, oh, well, if I pay it $100 a month, that's $25 a week. No, $100 a month is $1,200. And if you divide that by 52, you're not going to get $25. So you have to do the calculations properly. So once everything is converted to weekly, it makes it more relevant. You take your weekly amount for the obligations and your average weekly amount for your net income, and that percentage is your guide as to whether or not you're living within your means. Unfortunately, I have seen some people that they're at even higher than 100%. Their obligations have exceeded their net income on a weekly basis. A lot of people, though, still come in really well. And if you're at 50, congratulations, you are doing amazing. If you're at 60 or 70, you're doing all right, but things are probably tight. And if you're higher than 70%, it means that you're starting to struggle, because that means if you're at over 80%, only 20% of your net income is there for food and fun. And when I say food and fun, that includes all your addictions. So if you're addicted to chocolate, alcohol, gambling, smoking, drink, any of those, that has to fit in to what's left over after your obligations. So this is a really good measure of whether you're living within your means or not. Are there any questions about this? Again, I will go much more into detail on this part in that course that I'm going to be doing next week. So when you get into, you've got the obligations and the net income done. Now you're moving into your food and fun section. Food and fun, you fill in more for your information rather than for the calculation. The biggest calculation was that means level calculation. The benefit of doing it using my sheets is when you've done it, you have a list of everywhere all that money is going. So if your percentage is too high, you now get to go back and look and see where is it going. And if you look, because it's gotten converted to weekly, most of those numbers are tiny. So it's easy to pick out the big ones. Usually, financially, it will be a car loan or credit cards that will take you down. Those are the two biggest issues that people have. I am going to dive into the car loan part a little bit. For a car loan, the problem nowadays is most of us get financing for vehicles through the car dealership. The car dealership does not care if you owe more money than the vehicle is worth, especially since they're the ones who've made the profit on it. A car loan, the interest is what's called front-end loaded. So if you have a car loan for 5 years, let's just say your payment is $500 a month. You would think half of that is you're paying off your car. $250 a month is getting paid off on your car, and $250 is going to interest. Let's just say half and half. Interest wouldn't be that much, but I'm just going there. So, but that's incorrect. What happens is the first section of your car loan is almost all interest. It's front end loaded. So it's not flat, it's an angle. So at the very beginning, you're paying mostly interest and hardly any of your loan is getting paid off. When you get to the end of your loan, you're paying almost all of it goes to your car loan and hardly any interest, because you've already given them their profit. They get their profit at the beginning significantly. So these 7-year car loans that they're putting you into, you pay on your car for 2 years, and I guarantee you your vehicle is not worth anywhere near what you still owe on it, because you still owe almost the full amount. That is not a place you want to be. Never take a car loan for more than 5 years. Never. Try not to have one for more than 3 years. And if you'd like, I can share some tips on how to do that. For car loans, when you're calculating what you can afford for a vehicle, if you don't have a vehicle yet, there's an extra step. If you already have a vehicle, you know what it's costing to run it, and you know what it's costing you to pay for the vehicle. You'll have a pretty good idea of what you can afford monthly for a vehicle. If you've never had one, think about what you can afford to set aside for it. If you have my sheets, you can actually do the calculation and figure it out backwards, like how much would I have available. Out of that number, make sure that you are allowing for insurance, for the plates, for the vehicle, for the registration, for the gas, for the parking. Again, the sheets that I have will tell you a lot of things you have to allow for, maybe replacement tires and things like that. You have to take that off before you know what you can afford monthly for a vehicle if you don't already have one. Take that number and multiply it by 36. What you think you can afford monthly by 36. That means you have a 3-year car loan. A 3-year car loan is not likely going to get you the vehicle that you want in the beginning, but here's the strategy. Number one, your life changes a lot in 3 years. In 8 years, it'll be a whole lot different. And you don't want to be stuck with that same loan. 3 years, okay? You buy the car that gets you from A to B. Cars are not a great place to stick your money. They decrease in value so quickly, and it's not an investment. It's not where you want to spend a whole bunch of money unless you have it, discretionary income. So 3 months, you pay for the car for 3 months. The average person keeps a vehicle for 6 or 7 years. So for the next 3 or 4 years, you still keep putting that money aside. If you have repairs for the car, it can come out of that, but ideally it doesn't. You just keep putting that money aside. So by the time you're ready to get rid of your car, let's say after 6 years, it's paid off. It still has value, so you can sell it. It's worth more than what you paid for. And you have 3 years worth of savings. So now you can get a car for 3 years, a 3-year loan, but you have 6 years worth of that money. So you can buy a vehicle worth twice as much and still not be financially strapped. And it will get to a point where you have the money to buy the vehicle with cash, which is where you will always get the best deal. So that's my tips for buying a vehicle. The reason we didn't used to have to worry about this was because if you went to a bank for a loan for a vehicle, the bank does care that your vehicle is worth more than what you owe. So the bank would say, okay, the vehicle's worth $8,000. How much are you paying towards it? We'll give you some, but you have to make sure that you pay some. So you would have to put in, say, $1,000 or $2,000, and the bank would give you a loan for $6,000 for an $8,000 car, because they knew that way the vehicle, if they had to repossess it, they would be able to get the money back. Car dealerships don't care about that. They've already made the money on the interest, and now they've reclaimed your vehicle, and you still owe them the difference. So they're good. So if you do those things, that'll help you. Any questions? Nope. Okay. So what I would like to do is I would like to know, for the people here on the call, or if there's anyone on Facebook, Colleen, I can't see that, but if there's anybody that has any questions about the numbers in their business or in their personal life, or keep in mind, I am an accountant and I am a financial advisor. I'm a Canadian accountant, so I know more about Canadian rules for businesses than other ones. But I am curious, since we're halfway through, if there is any topic that someone here has questions on, something that they were hoping was going to be covered today. Does anybody have anything?
I have like kind of an accounting question that might be a little weird. I don't know.
Okay.
So my question would be, are you in your books for expenses, are you charged for an, when you use a business credit card to build your business credit? So I always struggle with tracking when I buy the item or when I'm paying like the credit card, right? When I'm making, I always track both, and I just don't know which is the best way to do it. Do you track when you purchase the item, and then that is the one-time purchase of expenses in your books, and then when you pay the credit card, that doesn't go to expenses because you've already tracked it? So is it at the time that you purchase it or when you pay the credit card?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And actually it brings up another.
Am I the only one that has this question?
No,
I've
you're
always
not.
wondered about that with credit cards and business. Yeah.
I just did a talk for a business group in Vancouver a couple weeks ago. And one of the questions I was asked, and this is really important, one woman asked me, can you use your credit card statement as your receipt? No, it's a statement. Your credit card statement, bank statement, none of those count as proof of purchase. And you can say, but it shows I bought something. Yes, you bought something. Even gas stations sell groceries. So no, you have to have receipts. Always keep every receipt. If you are in doubt as to whether or not you can claim it, you keep it. Your accountant will let you know if you can claim it or not, but you're better off to have the receipt than not have it. When you make a purchase, there's two ways to do accounting. One is called the accrual basis, and one is called the cash basis. Most people use accrual-based accounting. Cash basis accounting means it's all on when the cash changes hands. So if you make a sale, you don't count it until you get the cash. If you're paying for something, you don't count it until you've paid for it. Honestly, that is a nightmare system for me. Accrual is the most common one, and it's the easiest to follow. When you make a sale, when the bill is made out, that is when you count it as income. When you make a purchase, the date of that purchase on the receipt is when you count it as an expense. So when you are using a credit card, I think that answers your question, Colleen. Does it?
Does that mean that when the purchase is made, that's when you count it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. When you make the purchase, the date on your receipt is the date that you claim it for.
Okay.
But with credit cards, there are other things that come up because some people will use a credit card for business and personal. And you need to separate the two, especially if you don't pay it off in full and you have interest. This can happen with lines of credit. It can happen with credit cards, anything where some part of it is business expense and part of it is personal expense. If you keep track of the portion that is each, you will be able to claim the interest that you pay on the business portion, but you can't claim the interest on the personal section. So it's worthwhile to keep track. But if it's a credit card, please pay it off in full every month, as much as possible. Keep in mind that that is a rotating credit. So if you have expenses that are new that month, you're better off to take them, put them on the credit card and use the cash that you would have paid for them, put that on the credit card as well. And if you're having difficulty with keeping your credit cards low, I would put the money on the card the same day as you make any purchases. That will help you. For my system, when you do this, food and fun is discretionary. And the way that you can pay for anything in obligations with a credit card if you want to, because you know how much it is. You can put that money in there, pay it off, no problem. But for food and fun, people are tempted when they have plastic. You have nothing to stop you from making as many purchases as you want. And there is nothing in your brain that causes any negative effect when you tap. It's fun. Tap. Hey, oh, that was fun. Tap, tap. But if you have cash, if you have cold hard cash, you don't like parting with it. There is a part of your brain that reacts negatively to letting go of it. So it will keep you in check. And another thing is it will, for tracking, sorry, I'm cutting myself off here, but for tracking expenses, credit cards, debit cards are fantastic because you have a record of everything you spent. But for controlling spending, cash is king. always. So if you use the system and you're going through it, I mean, you can't just use this as if it's a budget and it's, oh no, I have this much, because there are things that you have to be aware of that I'll cover in the course. But usually you will say, let's say that 60% of your income goes to obligations, you know, there's 40% left. 10% of that at least has to be set aside. That is for future you. The other 30%, if we're using 60 and 10, the other 30% of whatever your net income is, you take out in cash that week. And that's what you have for that week. And when it's gone, you're done. No more. Nuh-uh. I don't care if you're out of milk, you're out of money. You don't dip into next week ever. That is your control. And it's easy because you can see it. You see how much you have. I don't do it. I will admit it. I don't use cash. I use my credit card for everything, but I track it. And you have to keep track. And if you're going to do that, my son actually does it the perfect way, is if he uses his credit card, he goes immediately and puts the money on the credit card immediately. So he never has to look at his credit card. If anything, they owe him money out of statement because he bought a game or something and it's not out yet, but he did the pre-purchase on Amazon and he put the money on the card, even though it's not billed on the card yet. So that is a great way. Yeah, business should be on a different one, but there are people who are small businesses who are just starting out and they don't even have a separate bank account for the business. Ideally, you do. Ideally, you have a separate credit card for the business. If it's a corporation, you are supposed to have that because a corporation is a separate entity. It's not you. It's a different person, essentially. When you incorporate, you create another entity. So that entity's money belongs to it. It's not yours. You don't get to take it unless it gives it to you as income or a dividend or a salary. It can be a loan, but there's rules with that so that you're not taking money from the corporation tax-free. They're very strict about that as well. But that's a good point, Mary. Ideally, you do have separation. Is there any other questions? You guys are good. All right. So what I'll do is I'm going to talk about some of the other sections. We delve into the wealth, the finances part. And if you do have a question about it, please put your hand up, let me know. The other sections of what I work on, the freedom and the joy, those are critical. So is clarity. Far too many people are working, making great money, but they forget why they started. They've lost themselves. Their inner child has become an orphan. They've forgotten how to have fun. They don't set aside time for their family. They don't have work-life balance. And they need to recapture that. And there are other people who need to have the clarity on where they're going and why. Why is it important to them? So what I encourage you to do is after this, take an hour, set one whole hour aside, get out a notebook or piece of paper, and I want you to sit down and write down all of the things that bring you joy and all of the goals that you have that when you get to the end of your life, you want to have these accomplished. They're things that they're important to you and that you will regret if they're not done. There is a reason you need to take an hour to do this. If you sit down and you start this, for the first 10 minutes, you're going to write like crazy because there's a lot of things that are top of mind. But there's a lot of things we packed away when we were younger. I think of these, like if you're on a floor sitting on the floor as a child and you have toys everywhere. These are your thoughts. They're the ones that are active all the time. They're the toys you're playing with all the time. As you get older, some of those toys get packed away in boxes. And our memories are the same way. They get packed away into boxes in our mind. You can go and access these thoughts and memories and come back to them, but it takes you a little while to get past the clutter on the floor. So it takes an hour of sitting to get this clarity. You sit down and you first get all of the active things, but then you're going to go back to the boxes and say, okay, what was important to me when I was 18? What was important to me when I was 10? What made me laugh? What gave me joy? And you're like, okay, but those were silly things. It was splashing in puddles and blowing bubbles and drawing on the sidewalk with chalk. Why can't you do that now? If it made you happy then, and a lot of people wait until they have grandchildren so they have an excuse to do it. You don't need an excuse. I do it. If there's puddles, I'm splashing in them. I have gotten drenched. I came home from work with a briefcase in a dress. It was pouring rain, like the kind where you just walk from your car to the house and you're drenched. I went to the house, I opened the door, tossed my briefcase in. I said, Dominic, toss me a towel by the door. And I went back outside in the rain, barefoot, and splashed in every puddle in my dress and had a great time. Went in, grabbed the towel, dried off, great big smile. Actually, my son came out and joined me. So I trained them well, right? So you have to go back and unpack these and try them on and see what still brings you joy. You cannot do this exercise when you are in a shit mood. If you're in a crappy mood, you are unable to access the things that are at a higher vibration. So your vibration is, everything vibrates. This is not woo stuff. This is physics. Everything vibrates. If you go back to water is vibrating at a high rate, it's steam. And if it's vibrating at a lower rate, it's ice, right? Everything vibrates, everything. So if you're on a lower frequency, you can't access things at a higher frequency. So if you're in anger, you don't really have access to joy until you turn the dial up. So when you're in a good mood, you make these lists. What are the things that make you happy? What are the things that lift you up? Is it singing, dancing, reading? A lot of those things, those three, especially for me, are very powerful because reading will transport you to another world. Music just lifts you up, and dancing in the rain to music. Oh my gosh, that's like nirvana, right? Like that's the best of all things. Write these down because you need those to nourish yourself on a day-to-day basis. You have to take care of that inner child, the same as you have to take care of future you. When you're making financial decisions, keep in mind that every time you go out and you're just blowing money on treats for you in the moment, that's taking something away from future you, that maybe that's a big goal that's important to both of you. The you now, the you of the past, and the you of the future. And those are the really big things that I want you to write down. Are you trying to change the world? Are you trying to create an animal shelter in your town? Is like, what is important to you? What are things that you thought of when you were younger that you've forgotten? Go back to those because they will come back. When you're laying on your deathbed, you'll be like, oh, I never did that. I could have, but I didn't. Why didn't I? You got too wound up in the day-to-day grind and you didn't take time to get clear and follow your heart. So I want you to go back, take an hour, write down the goals, also write down the things that bring you joy. You may want to do 2 separate hours for those. It shouldn't take you an hour to do the things that bring you joy. But when I do that, I get off on a tangent where I'm like, oh, but I want to try this. I haven't done this. I want to try this. Like I want to try this and I want to try this and I want to try this and I want to try that. So it may take you a little longer than an hour, but definitely an hour. And that will give you some clarity. Any comments? Questions? Nothing? Okay.
I
Well,
think it's been great information so far.
oh, that's good. I have to try and watch myself sometimes because I don't want to overwhelm people with the information. So I'm trying to go more in depth and keep it so that you only have so many takeaways. The last, well, there were on that triangle, we covered joy, we covered wealth, freedom. And that sounds like a strange one for me to talk about. I gave up my freedom for a long time. And again, I gave it up. It was my choice to claim it back. Even if it's really scary, it's still your choice. That's not the only freedom I'm talking about. Health is another part of freedom. If you don't have your health, you're not really free, right? Freedom to make your own choices is really important. There's a limited amount that someone else can do for you for freedom. But there's a limited amount someone else can do for you for wealth as well. Even if I really liked you and I was a billionaire and I thought, I'm going to give her $500,000, I still can't help you be wealthy. It's a choice. And
it's a state of mind. It really is,
yes,
right?
It is. If you are not comfortable having money, you will have that just fall through your fingers faster than you would ever imagine. Honestly, I can tell you that changing your thoughts about money is almost exactly like leaving an abusive relationship. It seems like a stretch, right? But hear me out. You have to be the one who says, I am more uncomfortable where I am than the fear of the unknown. So you will have lots and lots of people telling you, well, there's no reason you can't be. It's easy. Let's do it. They don't know where your head is. They don't know your exact situation. There's a lot of things that go into keeping you in that relationship and keeping you broke. If you have, I never admitted to myself I was mentally abused the whole time I was married, because if I had admitted it, I would have had to do something about it, and I wasn't ready to. So you also deny it with money blocks. Money's not that important. Oh, I'm doing all right. Things are fine. We'll get by. And I know, Colleen, I know you have definitely read Secret of the Millionaire Mind, which I highly recommend, by T. Harv Eker. It's a great book. And he will point out to you, if you say money's not important, you're broke. Simple. But it's, no matter how many people want to help you get out of that situation, you have to make that choice. You have to be ready, and you have to be willing to give up the familiar for the unknown. And while you're thinking to yourself, well, the unknown, freedom is the unknown. From an abusive relationship, you want the freedom. Yeah, but he could come after you. Like, are you actually going to be free? And vice versa with the money. Well, yeah, I'll have lots of money, but aren't people going to be hounding me? Won't I have like tons of responsibility? Won't I be able, like, oh my gosh, I'll be letting so many people down if I screw that up. And if you leave the relationship, well, what if I, like, is this good for my kids? Is this good for me? Like, it's the unknown. And it basically boils down to a choice. When you are uncomfortable enough where you are that you're willing to embrace it, you'll move. You can work at it for as long as you want. You can prep for it, but you have to decide to make that choice. What keeps us from being wealthy is not what we say the beliefs are about it. It's actually what we think the benefits are for not being wealthy. Do you get that? We obviously think there is some benefit, that we think there's a benefit to staying in the relationship. Oh, I can manage him, or I can see where he is and I know what he's up to and I can kind of manage his moods. And there's also a benefit to staying broke. Well, for different people, it's a different thing. But you definitely wouldn't stay there if subconsciously you didn't believe there was a benefit. And it's not that you have to change your beliefs and go out and say affirmations about, I'm wealthy. You just have to change and let go of, what do you think the benefit is of being broke? What do you think the benefit is of not being a millionaire? And if you can get clear on that and let that go, the belief in that benefit, that's when you will unlock it. So I can't.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. I wanted to let all of you know, and I really love talking about numbers. You know, so many people shy away from looking at their numbers, talking about money. And I think the more that we shy away from it, the less of it we have, because it's just not a conversation we want to have, right? So the more that we're talking about it, the more that we're embracing not only the energy of money, but money itself and the exchange of it, and not being afraid to invest in things for us, as well as others investing, you know, and working with us for an outcome that they're going to receive. It's so important to know your numbers. You know, we talk about that a lot, in knowing your numbers and realizing that you own a business, so you have write-offs. And if you don't have a good CPA, you need to get one. And, you know, financial planner. This is all of the pieces of running a business as a business owner, right? So thank you, Heather, for being here today and dropping that link. I did drop it into Facebook because I had it up and while it was live. So I dropped it in there as well. I don't see any comments or questions on Facebook. But, you know, you may get some of those later, so you can go back and check on that. Next week, ladies, we are having Jean Kuhn join us, and she's going to be talking all about the new rules for lead generation, marketing, and revenue in 2022. So I'm going to drop that link real quick in the chat for all of you so that you can go ahead and sign up for the Teaching Tuesday for next Tuesday. That will be really awesome as well for us to be able to learn more about how to generate additional leads. I don't think anyone on this call can say, I have too many leads as it is. I have to walk away. Sorry, there's too many people knocking at my door wanting to work with me, right? So it's a good opportunity for all of you to show up, learn a little bit more about how to generate some more leads and marketing yourself in 2022. You know, it looks a little bit different. Some of us are going back in person. I feel like we were really going back in person in 2021. Then all of a sudden we locked down again because COVID's like rampant. Everyone's got the flu or a cold. I keep seeing posts of my friends that are either sick with the flu or a cold or have COVID, and everything is just shutting down again. So how are we able to market ourselves moving into this new year? And you guys all know me. You need to be seen, you need to be heard, and you need to be visible, right? So you need to get yourself out there and go live and get on podcasts and show up at networking events and one-to-many opportunities for speaking. You need to get out there and not hide behind, you know, I call them keyboard warriors, where you hide behind your keyboard and that's all you're doing all day. You need to get yourself out there. So thanks for joining us today. Thanks for respecting Heather and giving her the floor to be able to teach us the ease of our financial prosperity and numbers and learning more about that. And I love Mary's comments here. Ain't mama happy, ain't nobody happy. And that's so cute, right? So that just tells me that we are responsible for our own happiness, right? No one else is responsible for our happiness, our joy, our wealth. We are. And so if you want to make that happen, you're the one that's responsible to make that happen. You could be working with multiple coaches. It's not their responsibility to make that wealth happen for you, right? They're guiding you through that. It's still, no matter what, your responsibility to take the action. Mm-hmm. And action creates more opportunity and more action to take and more opportunity, but you have to take the first step. So make 2022 your year of wealth prosperity. Make 2022 a bigger and bolder year for you to be a bigger, bolder of you, yourself. What can you do in 2022 bigger that you did in 2021 to be a better, bigger version of that and get your brand out there? I want you guys to all think about that and take that seriously. And even if you want to brainstorm it, you can always reach out to me via email and I'd be happy to brainstorm that with you. So Heather, thank you so much for being here today with us. Ladies, it was such a pleasure. Make sure you sign up for next Tuesday. And
I would love to say thank you to everybody who showed up. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We love being here.
Yeah, we do. It was great. Thanks for the info.
Oh, glad to help. I did put my calendar link in there, and if anybody wants to book a call with me, please feel free.
All right, awesome. We will make sure we get that copied over as well. Excuse me. All right, ladies, take care. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Bye.